Doing well.
Great.
So there's finally a play in the playbook for 3rd and 20?
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah, that was quite a play. From let's get in field goal range to let's go get the win. That was a great play by James. You don't see many plays like that.
Was that the goal? I mean, when you got to 3rd and 19, if you look at the coverage, I mean, they're basically playing on the sticks. And
Yep.
they're going to
Exactly
surrender.
what we call it. We call it sticks coverage. They were playing the sticks. And,
You're trying to get about 10 yards
they
there.
played it all year. They'll give you between 5 and 10, and 5 would have put us on the edge of field goal range, and then that's Coach Smith's call from there. Are we going to kick the field goal? Are we going to go for it? But you know, you're not against that coverage. You're not going to gain 19 fitting it in the window. You just don't have enough room.
Dirk, this team obviously, like every team, dealt with injuries, but talk about your depth. I mean, have you discovered this year that up front, at wide receiver, even obviously at tight end, that the depth is pretty good on this team?
Yeah, well, you build depth as you go. You know, depth comes from you build it as you go. And one thing about injuries, as you're forced to play other players, even if it's only for a couple games, it builds your depth.
Yeah.
So when you look at wideout, Dede and Adam had to play, Sheps had to play all year because Mike was out early, then Vince was out. It forces you to play those guys, and then after they played, they figure out, hey, yeah, we can play. So the same things happen at the O-line. Same thing has happened at tight end. We already knew we had depth at running back. We already knew that was our deepest position going in, and we haven't had to use it, but I know that we're deep at quarterback too because we got a heck of a backup quarterback sitting there. So injuries force you to play your other guys. They figure out they can play. I think also our coaches have done a good job continuing to develop. It's part of practice where you guys can go out there and watch. You know, all the coaches are working with their guys, individual drills, and it's a long season. So just because the season started, you don't have to stop your development.
Dirk, can you, on those lines, can you go back to the beginning stages of what you inherited and what you saw in the first film sessions you looked at? How far you guys had to go to this point?
I mean, if we had about an hour or two for me to think about that, I probably could. But I've said it many times in here. When I came here and you look at the things that went wrong for these guys last year, from injury standpoint, unfortunate thing that happened with Jeff Tedford, just there was better talent here than was given credit for. So, then we started over. We put in a new system, put to OTAs, all that stuff. But I don't know. I haven't given that a whole lot of thought right now. That's something we can reflect on at the end of the year.
Dirk, Austin Jenkins got to play finally.
Yep.
And took a hit right away, which is probably good, I guess, in some respects. But what did you observe of him? And what about, he's been out there for a number of weeks.
Yep.
And he just wasn't cleared for contact.
Yep.
What about the work he put in out there and his perseverance? And it's a long injury.
Yep. No one wants to play more than Austin. If you ever watch Austin on those games when he was hurt on the sideline, he's the #1 cheerleader out there. I mean, I just know personally from my own conversations with him, that guy really missed playing. He wanted to play. Heck, he was coaching Tevin Westbrook, our tight end on the practice squad. Austin's been coaching him up. But then when you actually get in the game, your heart's pumping, your adrenaline's going. Austin was a little bit rusty. He looked like a guy that hadn't played in 9 weeks. You take 9 weeks off. Practice is practice, and game speed in the NFL is game speed. And then he took that shot. That was a good shot William Moore put on him. And I was a little nervous when he kind of popped up. But he hung in there. He played 20-something plays, and I'm sure that number will continue to grow from here on.
Talk about your play in the red zone, James Winston, 12 touchdowns there, no interceptions. That's obviously what you want. But
Yeah.
Your whole red zone play has improved. Talk about Jameis and the whole overall.
Well, you got to. Our goal is 55% touchdowns in the red zone. You want points every time. If you in the NFL, you get inside the 20-yard line, you should have a field goal in the bag. 55% touchdown rate will usually put you top 5 in the NFL. That sounded like a statistic right there, but it really wasn't. I wasn't, and that is one of the 9 too. So we had a great week last week. 75%. Really should have had 100%. We should have made that other play, but we had to settle for the field goal. I think part of it is you learn your players. You know, maybe we've calmed down our scheme a little bit. You know, we're a running football team, so we're running it a little bit more. You learn your guys. I mean, everybody fits into their role. But I think two areas that we have improved a lot this season since those first couple games are red zone and third down.
What do you mean by calm your scheme down?
Well, that's probably more something for me where, you know, we were maybe trying to do too many things in the red zone instead of just, after we kind of figure out what our identity is, stay in our lane and do what we do and not necessarily try to do what we were doing in Atlanta or something like that.
How's Jameis been in that area? I mean, obviously the numbers say he's been tremendous.
Well,
But
I just think the red zone is a reflection of Jameis overall. I mean, I think you could just take Jameis in red zone, Jameis on third down, Jameis on decision making. We've talked about that every week. Jameis is, he's had a very steady progression of his improvement throughout the year.
He said recently that, yes, you guys don't want him to run, but he'll take it and yelled at every time. It's 5 touchdown runs this year, the 3rd and 19. Is this something you're going to have to live with and cross your fingers, Coach?
No, I mean, nobody's going to stand up here and say they got a problem with him running when he makes plays like that. We don't want Jameis taking hits, but when it's, you know, we had a little Packer, we call that a Packer screen that he ran that in. It's a very similar play to the one he ran in Atlanta. That was a shovel pass that he ran in. There's really no other options. Atlanta really covered that well. They took away, you know, we're trying to isolate one guy and then work a screen off him. Their defensive end played it great. Jameis has no other options. That's why it almost looked like a run because all the other guys were blocking for Doug. We were trying to set up a little screen to Doug. That was just a smart play by Jameis. We tell him when a play like that breaks down, cut our losses. All right, that's a 1st and goal on the 4 or 2nd and goal on the 4. Worst thing that happens, 3rd and 4. But if a guy can make a play on top of that, that's fantastic. We don't discourage that at all. We encourage it. We just don't want James getting hit too many times.
How Dotson play, Dirk?
He did a good job. Yeah, DeMar did a really nice job. Going back to our depth question, that's another one. You know, going into this season, arguably we would have said, you know, between Logan and Dot, our 2 best returning linemen, and here he is, like Austin, making his first appearance in a long time. And he's been foaming at the mouth to play too. He's just not as vocal as Austin is. He did a nice job. So now, again, our depth of tackle just went up. I mean, Gaz has played well this year. Dot did a good job. That just makes us better for the long run.
I know you got gassed a little at the end, but it seemed like you ran a lot of tosses on that, so you taking advantage of some of the fresh legs, or
not necessarily fresh legs.
scheme?
We have made an emphasis this year to try to make sure we call our tosses. You know, that's a play that usually is kind of at the bottom of your run list, and sometimes you lose it and don't call it. But as we talk about your identity, all of a sudden we figure out, hey, we're not a bad toss team. You know, we've got if you have tackles who can pull, and then the second most important pull guy, you got to have wide receivers who can crack. We do, and then you got to have a center that can pull, and that plays right into Joe Hawley's strength.
Dirk, I know you're not a stat man, but
I'm kind of a stat guy.
the stats showed that the Saints, I mean, you know, opposing quarterbacks, I think 116 passer rating. That's a record pace, Dirk. But is there a temptation maybe you go away from your identity where you know, you're a run-first team? How do you balance that?
Well, first off, you know, the Saints have had a lot of bad luck on defense, right, this year as far as injuries. We just did the depth chart this morning. In their rotation, guys that are playing in the game, they're playing with 8 rookies on defense at one time or another. All those guys aren't starting, but they got 8 rookies playing in the rotation. And their middle linebacker, 50 from Clemson, he's playing great. He's their leading tackler. But they've just had some they've had more than their fair share of injuries. They've had to move some guys around. You know, they've still got some very talented players. They've got Bird back now at free safety. They got 2 really good safeties. They've still got Cameron Jordan outside. He's got 8 sacks on the year. Specific to your question, no, we are not tempted to get out of our lane. We gotta just stay right with what we're doing. We're doing fine.
Coach, there was speculation that after Doug Martin fumbled, he was sat down as punishment kind of thing. Is that what happened there?
No, you guys can forget that. We would never do something like that. I mean, players are going to make mistakes. That's like saying if James throws a pick, we're going to set him down, or Logan misses a block, we're going to set him down. I didn't even know that till one of the guys alerted me to it, that was even a rumor out there, but no, we didn't do that. That was just part of the regular rotation.
Dirk, can you talk about the progress of your offensive line? You start with 2 rookies and a couple of guys you guys picked up on waivers. And, you know, Logan, who was a trade last year, is kind of a patchwork quilt there at the beginning, and it's turned into a decent offensive line.
Yeah, more than decent. I'd say more than decent. I think they're doing a really good job. And I think the credit starts with George Warhop, our line coach. We got good leadership from the older guys, starting with Logan Mankins, but you know, Evan Smith. We bring in those 2 big vets, the rookies. You know, those are 2 second-round picks. You expect second-round picks to come in and start. And you know, traded up to get Allie. We took Donovan right at the first of the second round. Donovan's right outside of a first-round pick, and we were fortunate to get those 2 guys in the draft where we did. I mean, I've said before, we hit the jackpot when we got Jameis and those 2 guys in one draft. So it's come together. We've had relatively good health, and then when we haven't had good health, we've been able to plug somebody in. I think continuity, we've talked about that several times in here, continuity in your line, those guys being able to play next to the same guy is always good. And success breeds confidence. That's true at any level of football. Success breeds confidence. The better you play, the more confidence you get.
Any extra satisfaction sweeping the Falcons, Mr. Koetter?
Oh man, you know that. Yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't fess up to that. Of course, everybody wants to beat their old team. I got a lot of love for players on that team. I'm very close to some of those players, but shoot, it never hurts to beat your old boss. Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Coach.